I never thought I would find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and I'm just an average guy in my mid-30s. I've been married to Laura for over 7 years now, and for the most part I thought we were doing well. We had our ups and downs like every couple, but I figured that was normal. Lately, though, I started to notice some changes in her. Small things at first, but they began to pile up. It started with her late nights at work. Laura is a project manager at a marketing firm, and her job can be demanding, but I knew her schedule well. When she started staying out late at the office, I tried to be understanding. She often told me about last-minute meetings or projects that needed her attention. I even supported her, telling her how proud I was of her dedication. But something felt off. The more I tried to reassure myself, the more I felt a nagging sense of unease. Then there were the little things, like when she stopped sharing her phone with me. Laura used to leave her phone unattended, and I never thought twice about it. Now she would always take it with her even into the bathroom. If I ever asked to see something on her phone, she would quickly change the subject or make some excuse about needing privacy. I brushed it off as her wanting personal space, but deep down I started to question everything. One night I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I decided to check her social media. I know, it's a slippery slope, but curiosity got the better of me. I found a few messages between her and a guy named Mark, a coworker I'd heard Laura mention once or twice. At first, they seemed harmless, just friendly banter, but then I noticed the tone shifting. Flirty emojis, inside jokes, and then came the kicker, a message that read, "I can't wait to see you again. Last time was amazing." My heart dropped. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I had suspected something for weeks, but seeing those words laid out in front of me was a different level of betrayal. I tried to push the thoughts out of my mind, but they kept coming back. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning while my mind raced with anger and confusion. The next morning was a blur. I barely managed to get through my usual routine: shower, coffee, and a quick breakfast. I felt like I was moving through a fog. When Laura came down, she greeted me with her usual cheerful demeanor, but I was anything but cheerful. I couldn't look her in the eye. As we ate breakfast in awkward silence, every smile from her felt like a dagger in my heart. Finally, I reached my breaking point. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Laura, we need to talk," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She raised her eyebrows, looking surprised but not worried. I took a deep breath and told her about the messages I found. Her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of a confession, she laughed it off, claiming it was all in good fun and that I was reading too much into it. "Jake, it's just work stuff. You know how we joke around," she said, waving her hand dismissively. I could feel my blood boiling. How could she sit there and lie to my face? Joke around? "Laura, I don't think amazing means what you think it means." I shot back, feeling the heat of betrayal coursing through my veins. She shifted in her seat, her expression changing from amusement to annoyance. "You're being ridiculous, Jake. You know I love you." I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her understand how serious this was, but instead I felt myself sink into a pit of despair. I thought I knew the woman I married, but now I felt like a stranger in my own home. The confrontation spiraled into an argument, her insisting that I was being paranoid and me desperately trying to make her see the truth. It was a battle I couldn't win. As the day wore on, I tried to process everything. I felt angry, betrayed, and confused. I had to come up with a plan. I needed to know more about what was really going on. I was determined to uncover the truth. At that moment, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. What did I want? How could I confront her without losing my mind? I was spiraling, and I needed to regain control. After that explosive morning, I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. The anger churned inside me, but it was mixed with an overwhelming sense of sadness. I loved Laura. We had shared so much together, the laughter, the tears, the dreams of a future. But now, all of that felt tainted by the thought of her cheating on me. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I had to find concrete evidence of what was happening between Laura and Mark. I knew it was a slippery slope. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I couldn't sit idly by as my life crumbled around me. I needed answers. That evening, I put my plan into action. Laura had plans to meet some friends for dinner, so I knew I had a window of opportunity. I pretended to be supportive, wishing her a good time as I watched her get ready. She slipped on that red dress, the one I always thought made her look stunning. I could feel my stomach turning as I imagined her wearing it for someone else. After she left, I wasted no time. I got my hands on her phone, and for a moment, I hesitated. The guilt washed over me, but I pushed it aside. I had to know. I unlocked her phone. She had left it unattended, the screen still lit up from a message. First, I checked her social media accounts. There was nothing new, but it felt like I was searching for a needle in a haystack. So I turned to her texts. I found a thread between Laura and Mark that made my stomach churn. It was filled with flirty messages, but also planning arrangements for when they could meet again. My heart raced as I read a message where Laura told him, "I can't wait for our next work meeting. Just you and me." I felt sick. It was clear as day that this was more than just a friendship. I dug deeper. Looking at the timestamps, I realized they had been texting late at night while I was asleep. My mind raced with images of them together, laughing, sharing intimate moments, and everything I had thought was special between Laura and me crumbled away. I wanted to scream, to throw her phone against the wall, but instead, I focused on gathering all the information I could. Then I came across something even worse, a hidden photo she had received from Mark. It was a suggestive picture of them together at a bar, both looking way too cozy. My hands trembled as I tried to process what I was seeing. I felt like I was losing every bit of sanity I had left. There it was, the proof I needed, and it hurt worse than any words she could have thrown at me. As I put the phone down, I felt a surge of anger coursing through me. She had the audacity to lie to my face while engaging in this betrayal. I was no longer just sad, I was enraged. I couldn't believe I had given her the benefit of the doubt, defending her when she brushed off my concerns. I felt humiliated, played for a fool. That night, I decided to confront her again, but this time I would be armed with evidence. I knew this would be a different conversation, one where I wouldn't let her twist the truth. I had to make her face the reality of what she was doing. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, just as I was. Feeling it, when Laura returned home late that night, she was tipsy and in a good mood. I could see her glowing, but I felt anything but. I sat on the couch waiting for her. She walked in, saw me sitting there, and immediately her demeanor changed. "Jake, what's wrong? You look serious," she said, trying to brush it off with a smile. "No, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but strained. I pulled up her texts and photo on my phone. "I found this." As I showed her the screen, I watched as her expression transformed. The smile faded, replaced by a look of shock. "Jake, wait, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, but I wasn't going to let her off the hook this time. "Not what it looks like, really. I have proof right here. You're cheating on me with Mark. How could you do this?" I felt the flames of betrayal burning hotter in my chest. As she scrambled for words, I could see the panic in her eyes. "It was just a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "I was just feeling neglected. You're always working late and I wanted some excitement." Excitement, so that was her excuse. I felt the anger boiling over. "So you thought sleeping with someone else would fix it? You didn't even think to talk to me first. Do you even love me?" I was practically shouting now, the pain in my chest manifesting as fury. "I do love you, I was just confused," she cried. But it was too late for apologies. I had already made my mind up. As I stood there, the reality of her betrayal settled in. I realized I was no longer just hurt. I was ready to take action. I needed to show her that actions have consequences. I had to make her understand what she had done to us. The calm facade I'd been trying to maintain was crumbling, and I was ready to turn the tables. I was going to make her regret her choices, and for the first time, I felt a powerful sense of clarity about what I needed to do. In the wake of our confrontation, I felt like I was living in a haze. It was hard to process everything that had just happened. Laura was still there, sitting on the couch with tears streaming down her face, but I felt distant, like I was looking at her from behind a glass wall. I had been betrayed by the woman I loved, and though I was filled with rage, there was also a profound sadness that washed over me. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, but I knew I had to take action. I didn't want to just let this slide, nor did I want to be the victim. I needed to show her that cheating has consequences, and I would make sure she understood the weight of her choices. My mind raced with possibilities. I wasn't going to just sit back and take this. We spent that night in silence. Laura tried to reach out to me, apologizing and pleading for forgiveness, but I wasn't ready to listen. I had to formulate a plan, something that would not only make her realize what she had done, but also make her feel the same pain that I was feeling. The next day, I decided to keep my distance from her. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't focus. All I could think about was how to make her feel the consequences of her actions. Laura texted me throughout the day, trying to apologize and get me to talk, but I ignored her. I needed her to feel the tension and uncertainty that came from my silence. Then it hit me. I would manipulate the situation to make her feel the fear of losing me. I started by getting a little help from a mutual friend, Ben. He was a close buddy of mine and had always been supportive, but he had also known Laura for years. I reached out to him and told him what had happened, including the affair. He was shocked and furious on my behalf, but I had a plan for him as well. I asked Ben to casually mention to Laura that I had been spending time with another woman. In truth, it was a lie, but I was hoping it would make her uneasy and show her how it felt to be on the other side of betrayal. I wanted her to feel the insecurity and fear that I had felt when discovering her messages. Ben agreed, and I could hear the smirk in his voice as he said he would play along. That evening, I returned home and saw Laura sitting on the couch, a look of desperation on her face. I tried to act normal, but it was hard. I could feel the tension in the air, a thick heaviness that hung between us. As I sat down, I could see her searching my expression for any sign of forgiveness. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I can't take this silence anymore. I'm really sorry for what happened. I made a huge mistake." I nodded, feigning indifference, and waited for her to continue. "I want to work on our marriage. I love you, and I'll do whatever it takes to make it right," she confessed, her eyes filled with tears. "Really? You think saying sorry is enough?" I shot back. "You think that just saying you love me will fix everything, Laura?" She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "Don't you dare pretend like you're the victim here. You made your choice, and now you have to deal with the consequences." Her face fell, and I could see the realization sinking in. I was no longer the same Jake who would forgive and forget. That's when Ben texted me. I glanced down at my phone, and I could see that he had sent a message that perfectly aligned with my plan. "Just saw Jake with a girl at the coffee shop. He seemed really into her," it read. I looked up at Laura, and I could see the color drain from her face. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice shaky. "What do you mean?" I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "I didn't say anything." "Jake, are you seeing someone else?" She pressed, her eyes wide with panic. "Why would you think that?" I played dumb, but part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction as I saw the realization hit her. "Oh wait, is Ben spreading rumors now?" Laura's eyes filled with tears. "You can't do this to me. You know how much I love you. Please tell me it's not true." I let that sink in for a moment. "I don't know, Laura. Maybe I'm just looking for some excitement, just like you were." The betrayal in her expression was palpable. I was watching the tables turn, and while it felt vindicating, I also felt a twinge of guilt. But I couldn't back down now. I needed her to understand the gravity of her actions. "Please, Jake, I'll do anything. I promise I'll change," she cried, desperation lacing her words. I shook my head slowly. "You had your chance to make this right, Laura, and you chose Mark instead. You have to experience some of this pain." Seeing her crumble in front of me stirred conflicting emotions, but I reminded myself of the betrayal I felt just days before. I was tired of being the one hurt, tired of being the one neglected. She deserved to feel at least a fraction of what I was going through. We spent the evening in a tense stalemate. I could see her struggling with the reality of what was happening. I refused to give in, even as she tried to reach out for comfort. I was determined to make her confront the consequences of her choices. I had to hold firm in my decision to not give her an easy way out, and I was prepared to see this through to the end. Little did I know, the lengths I was willing to go to for revenge would only deepen the wounds in our already fragile relationship. The days that followed were a whirlwind of tension and uncertainty. I kept the facade of indifference, a mask that I wore to keep my emotions at bay. Laura, on the other hand, was a mess. She oscillated between begging for my forgiveness and trying to regain my trust. I could see the emotional toll it was taking on her, and while part of me felt a sense of satisfaction in her struggle, another part of me wrestled with guilt. But I needed to see this through. Ben had been a reliable ally throughout this process. He would check in on me regularly, often bringing up my supposed new fling, and casually dropping it into conversations with Laura whenever he saw her. Each time I could see the way it affected her, the way her eyes would widen, her face pale, and her breath would hitch. It was doing exactly what I wanted, making her feel the fear and insecurity I had felt. When I discovered her betrayal, one evening as I was sitting in my home office, Ben texted me to say he was on his way over. He wanted to hang out and watch the game. I agreed, knowing that Laura would still be at her yoga class for a while. When Ben arrived, I poured us both a drink and we settled in to watch the game. "Man, I can't believe how much she's been sweating this out," he said with a smirk, referring to Laura. "You've really got her on her toes." "Yeah, it's working," I replied, trying to sound casual. "But part of me feels bad. I never wanted to hurt her like this." "Jake, she hurt you first. You're not the one who cheated. You're just making her face the consequences of her actions. Don't forget that," he said, taking a sip of his beer. I nodded, but the guilt lingered. I wanted her to understand, but I didn't want to destroy her entirely. It was a delicate balance, and I was getting tangled in my own web of revenge. Later that night, Laura returned home, and as soon as she walked in, I could see her tension radiating. She had changed out of her yoga clothes into a more casual outfit, but her eyes were still wide with the anxiety that had been building over the last few days. "Hey," she said, her voice strained. I could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Can we talk?" she asked, moving closer to me. I gestured for her to sit, but I could see that she was unsure of how to approach the conversation. I braced myself for whatever was coming next, heart beating in my chest. "Jake, I know I messed up, but I'm trying to do better. I miss us. I miss you," she started, her voice trembling. "I miss us too, Laura, but trust is something that's earned, not given. How am I supposed to trust you after what you did?" I asked, my tone harder than I intended. "I know I hurt you." "No, Laura, you broke us. You shattered everything we built together," I interrupted, feeling my anger bubbling again. "And now you want me to just forget it because you said sorry." She flinched at my words, and I felt a pang of guilt, but the anger surged forward and I couldn't hold back. "You think I was just going to sit around and let you pretend like everything is fine? I'm not the one who cheated. I'm not the one who betrayed our marriage." Tears filled her eyes and she took a shaky breath. "I know I did wrong. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll show you I can be better, I swear." "Show me? How are you going to show me?" I leaned forward, wanting her to understand the depth of my hurt. "What guarantees can you give me that you won't do this again?" "I don't know," she cried, her voice cracking with desperation. "I just want another chance. I can't lose you." As I watched her break down, I felt a part of myself soften. I didn't want to lose her either, but I had to stick to my plan. "Well, you need to understand how much you've hurt me," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "So, what do you want from me?" she asked, looking at me with tear-streaked cheeks. I paused, considering my next words carefully. "I want you to feel how it feels to be betrayed. I want you to see what it's like to be on the receiving end of this pain. It's not just about words anymore, it's about actions." Laura's eyes widened as she processed my words. "Jake, you can't do this. That's not how love works, isn't it?" I shot back. "You thought you could betray me and then expect everything to go back to normal just because you said you were sorry. It doesn't work like that." Her expression shifted from pleading to anger, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of realization in her eyes. "You're doing this to hurt me. You're being cruel." "Cruel? I'm just showing you the reality of what you've done. You can't just erase the past with a few words, Laura," I said, my heart pounding. The tension in the room escalated, and she looked at me with a mix of fear and disbelief. The tears kept falling, but now there was a steely determination in her gaze. "So what? You're just going to play games with me now?" "It's not a game," I said firmly. "It's a lesson, a harsh one, but one you need to learn." As the conversation continued, I felt myself wavering slightly. I had imagined this moment many times, but now that it was happening, it felt surreal. I was standing at a precipice, and I wasn't sure how much farther I wanted to push her. But deep down, I believed that this was the only way she would understand the weight of her actions. For the first time, I could see the fear of losing me reflected in her eyes, and while it felt good to have the upper hand, it also worried me. How far was I willing to go? As I sat there, watching her struggle between regret and anger, I realized that revenge could be a double-edged sword. I was treading dangerous ground, and the consequences of my own actions were starting to loom larger than I had anticipated. Could this truly lead to healing, or was I just further entrenching us in pain? I knew I had to decide what I truly wanted, and the answer was as clear as I had hoped. The following days were a blur. Laura and I were like two ships passing in the night, each of us trapped in our own tumultuous emotions. I continued with my plan, maintaining the facade of indifference, while deep down, I felt the weight of guilt pressing heavily on my conscience. I could see the toll this was taking on her. She was trying hard to demonstrate that she was committed to making things right, but the reality was that I was still hurt, deeply wounded by her betrayal. Laura was making an effort, though. She resumed attending couples therapy and sought ways to reconnect with me, organizing date nights and trying to rekindle the spark we once had. But every time I looked at her, I saw the woman who had broken my trust. The anger bubbled just below the surface, and I struggled to reconcile my feelings. One night, after another awkward attempt at a romantic dinner, I found myself sitting alone on the couch, staring blankly at the television. Laura was in the kitchen, cleaning up the remnants of our meal, and I could hear her humming softly to herself. It was supposed to be a peaceful moment, but the tension felt suffocating. I wanted to talk to her to address the elephant in the room, but the thought of confronting my feelings made my stomach churn. Suddenly, my phone buzzed next to me, breaking the silence. It was a message from Ben. "Hey man, how's it going? You okay? Laura was texting me today, really worried about you." I sighed, knowing that Ben had become a sounding board for both of us. Not great, honestly. I'm trying to give her a taste of her own medicine, but it feels like it's turning into a mess. Maybe it's time to talk to her, really talk. It sounds like she's desperate to make things right, he replied, his concern evident in his words. I considered his suggestion. Was I being too harsh? The rage that had fueled my actions slowly began to wane as I reflected on my motivations. I hadn't intended for this to drag on forever. I wanted resolution. I wanted to heal, but I was also terrified of being vulnerable again. I thought about what it would take to rebuild our marriage, but was it even possible? Later. That evening, I took a deep breath and called Laura into the living room. She entered cautiously, her expression a mix of hope and uncertainty. "What's up?" she asked, her voice shaky. "We need to have a real conversation," I said, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "This back and forth isn't working. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine." The tension in the air thickened, and I could see the realization wash over her face. "Jake, I know I messed up. I've been trying to show you that I'm committed to making this work," she said earnestly, taking a step closer. "I know you're trying, but I need to know if you truly understand what you've done." "I want to hear you say it," I replied, my heart racing. "I betrayed your trust. I cheated on you. I wasn't thinking about our marriage. I was selfish, and I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. Her words hung in the air, and I felt a flicker of something, maybe hope. But I needed more than an apology. "Laura, I want to believe you, but I need to know that you understand how deeply you've hurt," I said, my voice steady but strained. "Do you really get what this means for our relationship?" "I do. I've been reflecting on everything, and I realize that I lost sight of what matters most. I took you for granted, and I'll never forgive myself," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I want to do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." "I want to too," I replied, feeling a mixture of anger and compassion. "But it's not going to be easy. I'm still angry, I'm still hurt. And it will take time for us to heal." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling. "But I'm willing to fight for us. I want to make it right, Jake. Just please don't give up on me." Her vulnerability struck a chord within me. I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crack, and for the first time in a while, I saw the woman I fell in love with. But the scars from her betrayal still stung, and I was torn between the desire to forgive and the fear of being hurt again. Let's take it step by step, I suggested, my tone softer. We need to communicate better, and I need you to be transparent with me moving forward. No more secrets. I promise. I promise I'll do better, she replied, her voice filled with sincerity. As we sat there, the weight of our past lingered between us, but I also felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this was the turning point we needed. Maybe the bridge could be rebuilt, but it would take time and effort from both of us. Despite my lingering doubts, I knew I had a choice to make. Holding on to anger would only hurt me further. As much as I wanted to continue punishing her for her mistakes, I also wanted to find a way back to the love we once shared. That night, as I lay in bed next to Laura, I felt a mix of emotions flooding through me. There was still a long road ahead, but I was finally ready to take the first steps towards healing together. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that the journey was far from over. I had to be vigilant and ready to confront any lingering doubts or fears. The questions remained. Could I truly forgive her? Would she prove herself worthy of my trust again? The answers were still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like we might have a chance, if we both worked hard enough to earn it. The weeks that followed our heart-to-heart conversation were filled with ups and downs. Laura and I began to navigate the rocky terrain of rebuilding our relationship, but it was far from easy. We attended couples therapy together, and I could see the changes in her attitudes and behaviors. She was making an effort to be more open and transparent, but the road ahead was still littered with doubts. Every time she received a message on her phone, a knot formed in my stomach. I had to remind myself to trust her, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh. I often found myself replaying memories of her with Mark, the evidence I had seen, and the betrayal I felt. I knew it was irrational, but that insecurity crept in like a shadow, threatening to engulf the progress we were making. During therapy sessions, we discussed our feelings in detail. I shared my hurt and anger while Laura expressed her regret and determination to do better. It was cathartic but exhausting. Each session peeled back layers of our emotional turmoil, revealing deeper issues that had contributed to her previous infidelity. I began to understand that her actions stemmed from feeling neglected, but it didn't excuse what she had done. As time went on, I felt a shift in our relationship. The laughter started to return, albeit cautiously. We began to enjoy little moments together, game nights, cooking meals, and even taking long walks around the neighborhood. I could see Laura was genuinely trying to reconnect with me, and it warmed my heart. Yet doubt still lingered. I still couldn't shake the fear of her straying again. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I caught a glimpse of her, her face illuminated by the glow of the screen. I realized I hadn't seen her this happy in a long time. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe that we could make it work. Maybe, just maybe, we could get back to a place of love and trust. But then the realization hit me. There was always a risk in love, a vulnerability that came with it. I had to decide whether I was willing to embrace that vulnerability again. One day, during a therapy session, Laura surprised me. "I want to take responsibility for my actions, Jake. And I think it's important that I show you I'm serious about our future," she said, her voice steady. "I've been thinking about how to prove my commitment. I want to cut all ties with Mark completely. I know that will help both of us heal." Her words hung in the air, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. "I think that's a good idea," I replied, my heart racing. "You need to demonstrate to me that you're serious about being all in. It will help us both." She nodded, determination etched on her face. That evening, Laura sent Mark a message, explaining that she needed to end their friendship for the sake of her marriage. I watched as she carefully typed out the words, and while part of me wanted to jump in and check her phone again, I resisted. This was a pivotal moment for her, and I needed to trust her to handle it. As days turned into weeks, I noticed a significant change in Laura's demeanor. She was more attentive, more present. She started prioritizing our relationship, checking in with me more frequently and making sure I felt secure. I could feel the walls I'd built around my heart starting to crumble, but the vulnerability still lingered, a reminder of what had happened. Then came the day when I received a message from Ben. "Hey man, I know this is a sensitive topic, but I think you should know Laura is really trying. I saw her the other day and she told me about how committed she is to making things right. I believe she's serious this time." Hearing that from Ben gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe she truly was dedicated to rebuilding our relationship. That night, I shared Ben's message with Laura, and she smiled, relief washing over her face. "I just want you to see that I'm not going anywhere," she said, her voice soft. In that moment, something shifted within me. I realized that the journey to healing would be ongoing, but it was one I was willing to take. If she was genuinely committed to us, we made a pact, a promise to communicate openly and honestly about our feelings. I knew it wouldn't erase the past, but it could help lay a new foundation for our future. As time passed, I found myself letting go of the anger and bitterness. I learned to focus on the present, on the love that was slowly being rekindled between us. Laura was making strides to earn my trust, and I was finally starting to believe that we could rebuild what had been lost. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to Laura and said, "I'm proud of the progress we've made. It hasn't been easy, but it feels like we're on the right track." Her eyes lit up and she reached for my hand. "I never want to lose you again, Jake. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you." I squeezed her hand, feeling a warmth spread through me. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was ours. It was a journey of healing, of growth, and of rediscovery. I realized that love could withstand the storms, but it required effort, understanding, and forgiveness from both sides. As I reflected on everything we had been through, I felt a sense of clarity. I had learned that even in the depths of betrayal, there was a pathway to healing if both partners were willing to put in the work. The scars would always be a part of our story, but I also recognized that those scars could be a testament to our strength and resilience. In the end, I learned that relationships are not about being perfect. They're about being real, vulnerable, and willing to fight for each other. I was ready to embrace this new chapter, knowing that love could be rebuilt stronger than ever if we both committed to it wholeheartedly.